guys, it's Kevin again, and in this video I'm going to review a movie that really needs no introduction. Some people call this movie the single greatest movie of all time. I don't know if I call it the single greatest movie of all time, but it definitely is up there. It's a movie that really doesn't need an introduction, Pulp Fiction. There's really nothing you can say about this movie except that it is amazing. I mean, a lot of people say it's a classic, and it really is. And the interesting thing about this is, this was Quentin Tarantino's basically big entrance to film. He had done one of the movie Reservoir Dogs, but it really was not a big hit. It actually is now a cult classic, but it was not a big hit with the critics. A lot of critics didn't like it. But this movie changed all of that. And oddly enough, this movie came out the same year as The Shawshank Redemption, and what also came out the same year was Forrest Gump. So this came out at the same time with Forrest Gump and The Shawshank Redemption. So that was very interesting. But the movie definitely needs no introduction. So the basic plot, though, is a little confusing, actually. It's basically about these two hitmen, John Travolta and Samuel Jackson, and John Travolta is going out to meet Uma Thurman's character, Mia, for the boss's wife, because the boss is on vacation, and he's going on a date with her because he wants him to look after her, and there's a reason why. And then there's also Bruce Willis. There's just a bunch of different characters here, and it's all done in a way that a lot of films are not done. It's all done in a way that most films would fail, but this film doesn't. And it's done in like different stories of all these characters, but in the end they all connect. And it's very interesting because a lot of people would think, oh, that makes your film fail right away. But this film does not fail. It's really amazing, and it's just really, really, really good. It definitely is one of my favorite movies of all time. It definitely is up there in the top 10 best movies of all time, definitely. So, let's just get to the performances, which is what makes this movie so good. First, you have John Travolta. Now, John Travolta, the interesting thing was that Quentin Tarantino essentially did not want John Travolta in this movie because he thought he was too soft. He's done movies like Grease and Saturday Night Fever, which those are great movies. Don't get me wrong, I love him as Danny Zuko in Grease. That's one of my favorite musicals. Who doesn't love Grease? And Hairspray, this is before Hairspray, but he would go on to do like Hairspray, Bolt. But this movie really changed all that. This is one of John Travolta's best performances. He's really great in this movie. He's a very tough guy, and he's really great. The first shot we see of him is very, very funny because he's just been to Amsterdam, basically, and he's telling Samuel Jackson about what they call burgers in Amsterdam. Now, it doesn't seem like a very big scene, but it's very funny because it really works well. I mean, that's what really works well with the movie. Then you also have, so he was really good, and he was just a really, really good actor. Who also was really good, though, and who was probably my favorite in the movie, was Samuel Jackson. He really just steals the whole movie. He really does, because he knows he has cheesy dialogue, and Quentin Tarantino probably made that up to give him cheesy dialogue so it would be funny. But he delivers it so well. I mean, there's a classic scene with him basically ambushing this one guy, and he's just like, what does Marcellus look like? What does Marcellus Wallace look like? And he basically, do you speak English and what scene? You guys know that scene. You guys can look that up on YouTube. But that's a classic scene, and that's just a great scene, and he really has some great lines. I mean, he's like this tough guy, but he has some crazy lines in here, and I thought him and John Travolta worked really, really well together. Anytime Samuel Jackson, John Travolta killed someone, it was always hilarious. And that's one of the things I really love, is that this movie is not very serious when it comes to, like, the killing. Some stuff is taken seriously, but like whenever John Travolta and Samuel Jackson are killing someone, it's just supposed to be funny, basically. Everything that happens to them, everyone they have to kill, it's ridiculous, but it's supposed to be ridiculous because that's how Quentin Tarantino works. I think that's what made the film so good. Now, then there's Uma Thurman, who is not in the film as much as I thought she was going to be, but she really does have a great supporting role. We find out that the main reason that the boss wants John Travolta to take care of her is because she's a drug dealer. She basically is a drug dealer. She's smoking, she smokes crack crack, and she does cocaine, and there's a great scene where John Travolta basically had this bag of heroin before, because he also does drugs. Everyone in the movie does drugs. It's not really that big of a deal in the movie. Uma Thurman's character, it is, though, because she mistakes the heroin for cocaine. So she snorts it, and then she starts to get a bloody nose, and she overdoses. And while this does not seem like a big scene, it really is, because Uma Thurman does such a great performance in that one scene. There's this great dance scene with her and John Travolta earlier in the movie. They definitely have a lot of chemistry, and that's a really great scene. The reason that you don't see a lot of her is because, as I said, it's all done in different stories, and their story was very good. I really enjoyed their story. I think probably theirs is my favorite. I thought theirs was really, really good, and I really thought that Uma Thurman did a really good job in this. I mean, it's definitely different from anything you've seen her before, but she was really, really good. The other person I want to say is Christopher Walken. Now, he has a really good supporting role. He has to do with Bruce Willis's character. Bruce Willis's character, I had a hard time trying to figure out Bruce Willis's character was supposed to be a good guy or a bad guy, but I love Bruce Willis's character. Basically, Bruce Willis's character is this boxer, basically, and his father had given him this lucky gold watch, basically, and he told him it was like a lucky thing for him. And so he meets up with his girlfriend in a hotel, but she had misplaced the gold watch. And basically, some terrible things ended up happening to Bruce Willis's character, but he was really, really good in the movie. I mean, he definitely conveyed a lot of emotion, and I think this is probably the best thing I've seen Bruce Willis in. I mean, I haven't seen the Die Hard movies. I haven't seen things like Red. I haven't seen any of his big movies. I haven't seen The Elements. But this is his best movie, easily. He's very, very good in this, and I really did like Bruce Willis in this. I thought he was fantastic. Yeah. So those are basically the performances. All the performances are really, really good, and I really loved all the performances. Now, what's interesting is, as I said, it's done in different stories. Some people might think, oh, that might get a little, annoying. It does not, because it goes from one character to the next, and at no point in the movie are you like, oh, come on, this is boring. Go back to John Travolta and Samuel Jackson, because Bruce Willis's character is just as interesting as the last storyline with John Travolta and Uma Thurman. And then when we move to, the two people who John Travolta and Samuel Jackson trying to hunt down and kill, they're just as interesting as Bruce Willis's character. The storylines equally help each other, where each storyline is just as interesting, even more interesting than the last one. And I thought that worked really, really, really well, and I really did like that they did that, so that was definitely a plus for the movie. And the other thing is that this movie is almost 3 hours long. It's almost 160 minutes. But I was engaged the whole time. You guys will be too. You guys will love it, and I mean, that's what's so great about it. It's 154 minutes, but what Quentin Tarantino does here is he takes a movie that could be so boring, and he puts humor in it, and he puts humor in dire situations, and that's what I love so much about Samuel Jackson, is that he has most of the silly dialogue, but he puts it in dire situations, and it's hilarious. Anytime that John Travolta and Samuel Jackson kill someone, it's hilarious. Anytime they have a conversation, it's always about something random that has nothing to do with the plot, but is just there because they want some laughs, because you've got to have some laughs in here, and they don't want you to take it too seriously. That's hilarious. And that's what works so well about Pulp Fiction, is the comedy in there. And the aspects of, and the other thing is that the violence. Now, some people might be a little turned off by the violence. Don't worry. Most of the violence is comical. Most of it's silly. Except for Bruce Willis's character. That's not very silly. Uma Thurman's character, yeah, that's not very silly either. But there is a very funny scene with Uma Thurman and John Travolta after she has to get a shot in her heart, basically, from the overdose, and she basically is silent the whole time. That was a funny scene. And yeah, so that's basically what the movie is, and the only time it's like really, really serious is Bruce Willis's character. His storyline is not very funny, but it is really good because it's different from anything else you've ever seen, and definitely has a lot of drama to the story, as did Uma Thurman's character. I thought Uma Thurman had a lot of drama to the story, and that's why she's on the cover of this, because she really is a very important character, and yeah. The reason it's called Fiction is because, you know, like the Pulp is like the main storyline. There is no main storyline in here. It's a bunch of different characters. Just enjoy Pulp Fiction. You'll have a great time. It's one of the greatest movies of all time. You will love it. And just, if you haven't seen it, I highly, highly recommend you check it out. It's just amazing. It's hilarious. But there's a lot of bad language in here. This is not something for young kids to see. This is someone from my age and up to see. This is not for little kids. Do not show this to children. Do not show this to people who, you know, you are afraid will say the bad words. Yeah, so don't do that. But the good thing about the language is the other thing. They, you know, if they don't just say bad words to say bad words in this movie. It's done in a way where that's what they would say. You know, it's very realistic, and I really did like that. So, Pulp Fiction, definitely get it because it's freaking awesome. That's it for my review of Pulp Fiction. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next video, which will be my review for Big Brother 15. So, see you then for Big Brother 15 episode 10. So, see you then. Bye.